YouTube, welcome back to the Allegheny Northern in N-scale, and today we're going to do another kind of a how-to, basically planning your layout and the steps that I take in planning my layout. And for those of you who have been following along with the build of the Allegheny Northern for a while, you kind of have an idea of the things that I like and the scenes that I want to add, and everything from the seasons to the various industries. So none of this is probably going to come as a surprise to you, but for those of you who are either new to the hobby, trying to get started in the hobby, or something to that effect, I think you're going to find that this is a little bit interesting, and I hope refreshing, because there's a lot of layouts that are out there now, especially on YouTube, and quite frankly, they are probably intimidating. And what I mean by that is you see these layouts, they're big, they operate very specifically, they have specific signals and errors, and everything is just done to the finite detail. And if you watch the videos and the builder of the layout, operator of the layout, is talking to you about how they're going to operate the layout, and it might just seem like a lot to you and really take away from the hobby because, well, you're not quite at that level yet. So follow along as I explain to you my simplified process for designing the layout. Now, our layouts all start with the same exact step. We've got some kind of a board, whether it's foam insulation board like you see here, or plywood, or whatever. And for the most part, most of us start with a loop of track. And some of us never grow out of a loop of track. And there's plenty of folks online that will tell you why you shouldn't have a loop of track, and why it's not prototypical, and why loops are bad, and yada yada yada. Okay, well, and for those people, you can tune them out. I have a whole video on why my layout is a loop and why loops are not necessarily bad. And I talked to you a little bit about how to operate a loop point to point when you want to do that. But the first thing you want to do when you're getting your layout sort of planned and sort of together is come up with some track, right? And so the first thing we do is slap a loop of track down. Okay, where do we go after that? So for most of us, the next step after a loop is to get some sidings in. And that siding is going to represent an industry. And then we take that industry and we want to put cars there. And we probably put cars there that are, well, they're whatever it is that we have. So they might be coal cars, they might be flat cars, whatever it is, that's what we're going to put on that industry. And at this point, we haven't even talked about what our railroad is doing and what industries our railroad is actually serving, because the most important thing was loop of track, get trains running. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know there's going to be a lot of people that will say, yeah, I plan everything out, I know what I'm modeling, I know my industries, blah, 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 blah. And to those folks, say, good for you. For the rest of us who are kind of trying to figure it out, well, what are we interested in? That's the first step. And from there, how do we want to model what we're interested in? We have the track plan. Well, we don't really have a track plan. We have the idea of a track plan, right? And this is where sectional track really shines, because at any point in time, you can take that track apart and reconfigure it. Even if you're at a scene that is as far along as this, notice I didn't use the word complete, but as far along as this, you can still soften up that scenery and pull it right off the layout and reconfigure the track. But you don't necessarily have to, because for the longest time, you can leave your track pretty much bare and exposed until you get a track plan that actually works for what you want to do. Want to run big locomotives? Yeah, you're going to need some big, broad curves. Run long cars? Same deal. Maybe you're only running some little 4-axle locomotives and you don't need all those curves, so you can get away with a little tighter industrial looking locomotive and layout. Also fine. So now that you've basically figured out what space you have available and what you want to run, now we got to start talking about the buildings. Okay, there are buildings that are industry buildings, which your railroad is going to serve. There's other buildings, well, they're just scenery. And they're here to bring life to your layout. They don't interact with the railroad. They are just either in front of, behind, or beside the railroad. And that's pretty much it. So if the building is not directly related to an industry that is served by the railroad, and you have an extra building, how do you figure out what you want and what you don't want? Okay, let's take a look at what I've done here on the layout and what I'm planning to do next, because that is where the magic happens. Okay, so here's a prime example of a building that I couldn't get another track in here, and even if I did, it probably wouldn't be realistic. Okay, so I modeled a once rail served building that no longer has rail service. Interesting scene, fills in this whole little corner, but doesn't add a bunch of unrealistic track. So the industry that is still rail served is over here, and it has a reasonable amount of cars and trackage to it. Very tight turn, which would be common for a small, tight industrial area. Okay, that makes sense. Come on over here, and we have the liquid asphalt plant. Okay, I've got my rail served industry, so that's all well and good. I've got a track to it. Same with the steel mill and so on and so forth. Now, there are the larger industries like your port that will obviously be rail served. But there are structures that are not part of the railroad, like the ship. Okay, so there's going to be things that are added just for the fun of adding them, like maybe a dilapidated barn. All right, so planning your industries is as important as planning your quiet spaces, which this is a quiet space, not railroad served, but still on the railroad. Okay, so we've got our rail served industries, our non-rail served industries, but how do I go about picking them and designing them and then keeping my trains on the track at the same time? It's not always easy. And yes, I was able to reconnect that on the fly, so go ahead and be impressed. But anyway, okay, so this is where I am right now in my layout. I pretty much know where all of my rail-served industries are going to be, either because they're already there or because I have them planned out. So I know where they're going to be, and I know what cars are going to be serviced there. And so that sort of takes the mystery out of those areas. But let me show you a problem that I have. Okay, so we're back at the coal mine, or what will be the coal mine. And I have, from my previous layout, the New River Mine building kit. Everyone's seen it, probably everyone's built it. If you haven't, stop watching this video, go buy the kit, go build it so you can join the rest of every N-scale modeler out there and go build the New River Mine kit. Okay, now, for everyone who's still watching, this kit is designed to have 3 loadouts. And so if I take you around the corner here and show you the 3 loadout tracks, yep, 1, 2, and 3. And so I designed 3 loadout tracks, 1, 2, and 3. And then figured the outside track would be the main line, and that would be how I would get my trains around the loop, or I would have the balloon track, so to speak, to go back to the mine. Okay, let's talk about some problems with this. One, this inside track wants to be the main line. And the reason it does is because when you come back here to where the loops start, the inside track is the straight track on all the turnouts. So this track right here, and this track right here. So from an operational standpoint, that means my train doesn't have to go through any turnouts. The likelihood of it having a derailment or an issue is almost 0 because it's taking the straight path on all of the turnouts. Okay, well, let's just say that didn't work out because you can see how the building's oriented, and this building. And let me show you another problem here when you're running loops. So I'm crossing over, and there comes the big boy steaming around the corner, and I know that he is not going to be able to get through because, yeah, crossing over. So that's why sometimes running loops down here is a little bit challenging, because I forget that I'm running two trains and they cross each other. So not everyone's railroad will do that, but this one does. And the reason for why it does that I explained in some earlier videos, but in any event, okay, crisis averted. Now, let's come back here. So this building wants to sit this way, right? Okay, so if it wants to sit this way, then it is covered by main line. Okay, we'll suffer and put the main line out here. Okay, well, now the spacing of the track is such that this thing doesn't really want to fit here too well, and it's somehow going to impact all the tracks. Okay, well, solution is take out one of the legs and just have it cover two. Okay, that's not really what the game plan was here. The game plan was to have 3 loadouts, and so after kind of come up with some other ideas, I went, all right, well, let's forget that. Let's go ahead and flip this around. Well, let's go ahead and put it over here where there seems to be a little bit more space. And nope, we come up with the same problem. And also, we don't want to use this as our loadout. One, because once again, here's our main line. It's getting used as a loadout, and I'm still not enough spacing. The track is too tight with the number 4s. So this building doesn't work. Could I remove a leg? I could remove a leg, but that really doesn't solve the problem, like, at all. In fact, it still creates a problem in that I can't load out the number of trains that I want to load out. Okay, so what is the solution to that? Well, I'm not using that building. That's the solution to that. That building is going to go away. And I'm going to build a little bit more, I'm going to say prototypical model kit here that will be better representative of a current loadout. Now, not only could I not use that one, I couldn't find a place where this Western style flood loader would fit either. So I've got 2 structures that were previously on the layout that no longer work with my setup. Yeah, a little bit bummed, but now I have an opportunity to custom build a model. So here, I've determined that this is going to get a custom tipple, or I'm going to have to do at least a little bit more research to find a tipple that's going to work here and have a 3-track loadout that will accommodate my goals of having mainline on the inside and 3 load tracks on the outside. Okay, this loadout also has to accommodate double stack cars, because on the main line, running a loop during a looping session, which would be anything that doesn't involve actual operating, so like any kind of open house, there's a good chance that there will be double stack trains running through here. So I can't restrict the height based off the coal cars. Okay, so adds a little bit of complexity here. Now, let me take you over here, show you something. Okay, so we are right below our port sink. And what I'm showing you is actually not what I want to talk about. I just wanted to show you Rexy go by. But what I do want to show you is this nice area right here. So this is going to, when I pour my water, it's going to come up here, and there's going to be a very small amount of water here. There's going to be a very small amount of water that comes up here. And then there's going to be some little inlets and things that are going to be here. It's going to represent that this area is connected to this wider area, but it's off the layout here, okay? So this is where my marsh area is going to be, and you know that I bought 4 structures that are going to go here. Now, the land's already selected. I mean, I have a curvature here. I can change it. You know, I've got a flat area where the buildings can sit, and I've got a slope off area here, which you might be able to see better in profile, where it slopes off towards the water. Okay, so this is going to be my marshy area, flat area for the structure. But I built this without knowing what structures I was going to put here. Yes, I knew the type of structure I wanted to put here, but I didn't have the structure kit planned out. I didn't necessarily have this scene planned out, and that's why you'll notice that there is no scenery anywhere in here. Because now I am at the point where what comes first? Do my structures come first? Does my scenery come first? If I put all of my scenery in, I'm limited in what I can do with my structures. If I put my structures in, then I can form my scenery around it to a certain extent, but my guide rails, my endpoints are, well, the front of the layout, you can't go any further than that, and where my track is. Okay, so I know my structures have to fit in here. Now, do I have to custom build my structures, or can I build the kits as they are sold? My goal was to build these 4 kits pretty much as they're sold. I'm going to build some piers and some docks and some other things to connect to them that's going to be custom, but for the actual buildings themselves, I'm going to build them as the kits are given. Okay, so when you get your kits, yes, you can build them stock. You can always add little extra parts and pieces to fit your scene. I highly encourage that, because now you end up with something that's a little bit different than the next person, right? And you can do that kit bashing, you can do it scratch building, you can do a combination of both, whatever it is, make your structures interesting. But let's talk about the track, because that track is where our focus was at. First thing I do, put down my track. I've got this really large expanse of track, basically from the port here, all the way down through here, all the way down, back through this scene, through the bridge. Do I need those bridges there? No. I put that in there because I knew this was a long run. I needed some interest. So now we added some interest with this long bridge, different types of bridges. Something visually to look at. There'll be some water here. There'll be a road. There's going to be a lot of stuff here. So this is going to be an interesting scene for only being about 8.5 inches deep. Okay, but there's no rhyme or reason to this track. I just kind of let it meander. I knew I needed a passing siding because it's all single track, and that's a really long run not to be able to pass 2 trains. So there will be, from time to time, you will have probably an intermodal train parked here, maybe another coal train, but there's going to be some trains parked here. But the scenery, I don't know what the scenery is. There's no industries here. I thought about maybe adding a turnout to one of these 2 sides, and then having a small coal tipple, which would be very common for this particular area that I'm modeling. But then I thought, it actually would be really cool if I don't do that, and I leave it as a quiet area, and I leave it as a quiet space, and maybe just have a town, maybe just have some scenery, a field. I don't know, something. Maybe it'll be winter, maybe it'll be fall, maybe it'll be something different. I don't know. I don't have any idea what I'm doing here. And my point is, that's okay. I don't know what structures I need. I don't know what scenery material I need. I know literally nothing about this area other than, here's what I know. I have an industry right here. That industry needs to get cars in and out, and it does it through this track. That's what I know. I can change this track at any time. I can make this track anything I
tend
want
to hang on to
because,
it
because I never know when I'm going to want to change something because it works better than what I have now. And that's part of running trains. And as you can see, I've got the big boy running. I have the pound rails running. And of course, up there, I've got my CSX running. Okay, so track first. Moral of the story. Track first. After the track, run it. Figure out where your stuff is going to be. Okay? After you've run your trains and you know where your turnouts are going to be, then you pick your industries. Okay, do you have industries that are simply rail served? Do you have industries that are road and rail served? Do you have industries that were once rail served but now aren't? And then find the kits afterwards. The only time I would change that is if a model kit came out brand new, which in N-scale, I don't think we've had a new model kit, and I don't know when the last time was. At least I haven't seen anything new. But you get a new model kit and you see it and you go, I've got to get that into my layout. Now you're working a little bit backwards, right? Now you're trying to fit your model building into your layout. Or I'm saying, Track first, basic scenery next, then your structure. Okay, so I've got my sub scenery here. Structure next, finish scenery around it to fit it all in. There's no planning. Okay, I'm not sitting down. I'm not detailing out every industry that I need. In fact, here's a prime example. I have an industry that's going to be right here. It's going to be part of the Rearton Steel Corporation. It's going to be part of the rail making process. I don't know what this looks like. All I know is I want to have tank cars delivered and I want to have flat cars delivered. The rest of this, I have no idea what it's going to be. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to build something that needs those cars. Something that's probably going to be some kind of a metal acid etching or something, right? So the tank cars make sense. But I don't know what this looks like or what it is. I just know what's going to be there. So I kind of reverse plan my layout. I'm not planning it from the standpoint of I need to have these industries. I need to have these buildings. No. I planned it. I need to have this track. Okay, now I need to have this scenery look. The last thing I pick is the industry, and most of you are going to say, wait a minute, how does that work? Why are your trains running if you don't have your industry picked? It just makes more sense to me because now when I find kits like this one, never seen it before, Japanese kit, not sold in any of the hobby shops around here, found it at the Altoona Train Show. I went, I can use this. I didn't know how. I just knew I could use it. And then as the Rearton Steel idea developed, all of a sudden this kit made perfect sense. So I worked it backwards. Now I had an industry that if you recall, this track kind of curved around that way, right? Well, the building's straight. So I came in here before I put the scenery in and I straightened it. So it developed. I didn't have it planned. Loose idea, but the execution doesn't come until I get to it. You can do the same thing. So don't get hung up in your layouts on I have to have this, I have to have that, I have to do all this planning. Sometimes you gotta wing it. Sometimes just go and do it. Just start with the track. Get some track in there, get that track rolling, and run some trains. Figure out from there what you want to have. Now, if you've already got an idea, if you already know what trains you want to run, and you already know what industries you want to have, then fine, you're ahead. But if you are somebody who just wants to build a layout and you don't know what you want, don't let that stop you. That is, you know, how many things never happen because we get stopped before we can do them? So don't make that an excuse. Put your track up, start running your trains, find a track configuration you like, then determine your cars. Once you determine your cars, determine what buildings you need. Work it backwards. I've built an entire basement basically working backwards. I knew key scenes I wanted, like this giant port. I knew key seasons I wanted, like winter, so that I can make some snow plows, and because I like winter. And I knew I wanted to transition it from fall into winter because it would be a challenge. And it's scenery that's hard to model and model realistically. And yes, I will constantly come up with new ways to do it, and I'll keep changing it. But the whole point is, I started with the things that I liked, and then I sort of fit them all together. And for some of you who, have to have the Conrail line from 1989 in this particular city, in that particular town, at this particular day, this method's not going to work for you. For the 99.8% of other modelers who just want to have fun and don't find that research fun, think about working backwards. I don't know, it worked for me. So, because we had such a great series of comments and interactions on last week's video of, ruining an N-scale scene, I thought this would be a great follow-up topic because it's something I'm currently struggling with, and then I don't really know what buildings I'm going to put where, and I've got all this area to model, and I don't know what I'm going to model yet, and I'm just I started kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, but I got stuck because I didn't know what kind of structures I was going to put. I didn't know what kind of industries. I didn't know if I was going to leave the track plan alongside. So many things are unanswered. I just decided I need to start building some building kits and see where that leads me. So that's kind of where I'm at now with it. So since we had that great conversation last week, let's have the same conversation this week. Talk to folks here about how you plan your layout. You're probably going to help somebody who's getting ready to get started or doesn't know how to get started, and this may help them get there. So post your own experiences, post your own story down below, and share with others how you plan your layout.